Hi, so welcome back to our Telecommuting for Success series. I'm Dr. Kate Truitt, and I'm here today with Austin Bauer, who is the president and founder of Simple Progress. Austin and I first met at a dinner party quite some time ago where we got to completely geek out about company culture, which as a psychologist to me is always so inspiring. And what's really unique about what Austin does is he's all about focusing on how do you lead towards developing a compelling future. And when we're going to have a series of opportunities to sit down with Austin. So thank you so much for your time on that. And he really brings in something that's so important that I think right now about company culture in a time of uncertain change. So Austin, could you just share a little bit with us about the work that you do, your vision, your philosophy, and how come you're interested in sharing with us and what we're going to learn?
Absolutely, yeah. My career started in advertising. I was a commercial editor and producer, and so a lot of my work has revolved around making the most of people in creative environments. So from being a musician growing up to studying documentary film to being this commercial producer, a lot of times what I was trying to do was create simple communications, simple and clear communications that would get people to act. And that led me over time to working within creative agencies and seeing that there was a need internally within creative marketing agencies and just about every industry that I came across
Yeah.
for people to feel like their day-to-day work mattered. They were part of something larger than themselves. They were, as you mentioned, on the path in a direction that they were excited about, that felt personally fulfilling and would let them get the life that they're looking for.
Yeah. And I have to wonder, so it's March 2020. We are almost in April 2020. We're in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, and so many companies have built a culture around the idea of being in the office, around the constant connection and communication that people have in the office environment. And now people have been sent home. I mean, actually, a government mandate, go home. And so, what are you seeing with the clients that you're working with, if you're comfortable sharing? What are you thinking about in terms of culture and supporting people and being their best selves when their foundation has been ripped away from them by this pandemic?
Sure, absolutely. It is clearly unprecedented, and everybody is doing their best. And what I've seen is companies across the board doing their best to go above and beyond what they maybe are legally required to do. There's a
Oh,
couple of
good.
ways you could go. You could try to be as profitable as possible. You could try to take advantage of this, and everybody needs to think strategically about how they can perhaps benefit or minimize the losses from this. But I have really seen a pretty consistent focus on keeping as many people employed for as long as possible, paying people what is possible, and providing that. And so I've seen a lot more creativity and scrappiness even at some of the bigger companies. And that isn't across the board, but a lot of people I'm working with, that's what I'm seeing. The big challenge is keeping that culture cohesive and
Yeah,
alive
yeah.
once you are overnight over a weekend no longer going to be coming into the office.
Yeah, and creativity and culture. I mean, I feel like those are two huge Austin words. So I would love if you could we'll have many opportunities to sit down with you in the future, but what are some key tips that you would recommend that leaders put into place right now as teams are making this transition? I know with my own team, all of a sudden everything's on remote. We're used to popping in and out of each other's offices, brainstorming sessions in hallways, client questions, patient care popping up in the kitchen. And here we are trying to figure out another way to connect and build our own culture. What would you recommend that I do? What would you love to have people take away from this conversation?
Yeah, I would say one big thing is to create time for those collisions to happen. So we have a lot of meetings still, and they have a purpose, they have an agenda, they're for something specific. But how can you build in some time before and after that, or have a weekly half-hour virtual happy hour?
Oh, I
I
love
think,
that.
yeah. So I think at least once a week, connecting on a non-work kind of basis is going to allow things to happen. you can I've seen some people do book clubs and things like that, just
Mhm.
ways to connect. um, but definitely having conversations that are not work related, because the common thread between what you and your colleagues do is that you are all working at the same company and on the same or similar projects. So
Mhm.
inevitably the work stuff comes up. But if you
Yeah.
can start with connecting as people, you are probably going to uncover some interesting ideas that may have happened in the kitchen.
It's a bit of a ninja move. We're all going to be human together, and some work might get done in the process.
Absolutely. I mean, I think
Love
that's why the kitchen works, because
that.
our subconscious is ruminating on the problems, and there's people who get where we're at, are part of our
Yeah.
community. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love the idea of creating conscious collisions, making sure those still happen. I did see that Cards Against Humanity is now online.
Oh, there
And
you go.
so
Yeah.
for the appropriate workplace environment, HR approved, that might be fun for some people.
Yeah.
What other, that's such an important factor to bring in those collision points for connection. One other tip that you could give leaders just for our takeaway right now of
Yeah.
the
I'll give
teams.
a
Yeah.
Sure, I'll give a couple. These are more fun ones, but on the Cards Against Humanity tip, tomorrow I'll be releasing a toolkit that is called. It's another version of something that I've released in the past called Peculiar Prompts, and it's a lot of these fun things that you can do. We're releasing a social distancing edition, which is these creative prompts that you can do from home with minimal materials. And the way that my co-author and I use these is as icebreakers for our workshops and things like that. So that could be a fun place to start. One example of something that is just a nice way to connect as humans and get a sense of one another's space. I think something that's missing without being in the same space is that we don't have a shared physical space. But we're
Absolutely.
all
That's a big
curious.
deal. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all like curious, what does your physical context look like? And so an
Uh-huh.
interesting exercise is to either grab an object or a picture. I might just hold up this coaster and say, all right, everybody grab their phone. You have 45 seconds to find the closest like pattern to this in your house and take a picture of it. And
Oh,
then
fun.
you come back and people show it and say, oh, this is my comforter. And somebody says, oh, I have the same duvet or whatever. You find these interesting things come up that get, you get to know people even better than you might in the office with things like that don't really cross the threshold of being work inappropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and as a psychologist, what I love about that is you're inviting in the intra into the interpersonal connection. Oh, I have the same duvet. You would never know that about somebody except for being in this time right now. And so it's finding the silver linings, the opportunities, and what we're all navigating right now.
Definitely. I think there's a lot of potential for the virtual to add a layer
Mhm.
of intrapersonal connection that we never could do in an office.
I completely agree. And
Yeah.
so, where would people find peculiar prompts? Would that be at Simple Progress?
Yeah, that'll be at, you can check gumroad.co/peculiar prompts is where that should be. You can also just Google peculiar prompts and it'll take you to the pages. It's free. It's a pay what you want, and we donate a piece of that and all that. So
Oh, fabulous. So,
yeah.
we'll put that in the summary notes here so that people can have easy access to it. And you're kind of doing virtual treasure hunts in the house to connect back to your team. I absolutely love that. So let's do one more takeaway tip and then we'll wrap up, because I know we like to keep these short for attention spans, and we'll have another a couple more interviews with Austin where we'll sit down and talk about continuing to build virtual teams, really transitioning with the culture right now, recognizing that we are in a change of cultural shift going online, and a couple other topics. So, one other final takeaway tip of how do we build connection right now?
Yeah, I think now more than ever we need to be thinking about checking in at the beginning of meetings, and really on a personal note, asking what's on your mind, just checking in, not jumping right into the work, at least until people settle into this more. I don't know exactly when this is going to be released, but it's without having those water cooler moments, we may not be able to. A half hour virtual happy hour every week is great, but just taking that 1 or 2 minutes at the beginning to establish the human connection. I think is going to be huge. And secondly, from the top, from leaders, clear communication as often as possible, letting them know wherever it's appropriate what your plans are, what you have, what you are doing, the efforts that you're making in order to make as good of an experience for your team as possible.
Yeah. So clarity is so important. And again, what I really appreciate that you shared there is 1 to 2 minutes at the beginning of a meeting to again welcome in the human elements to check in, see how people are doing. So we have
Yeah.
some great tips, making really conscious collisions, being really mindful about inviting in those opportunities, starting team meetings with just a minute or two of really human engagement. I know my team and I always start each meeting with a havening exercise, and part of me wants to start doing meetings where we have start the meeting with everybody's got a pet, like,
Hmm.
you know, what is that, story time or share and tell, show and tell. That was
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah. I've heard of a lot of people doing that, and I think
yeah.
that's those are great. I do want to jump in with another quick one. I forget what the name of it was. It was like Happy Farm or something. But basically, you can. I'll get it for your notes afterward. But you can have. It's this farm in Northern California that has llamas and pigs and all this stuff, and you can give them a little donation, and their llama will dial into your Zoom meeting. And so all of a sudden, there's this live feed of a llama that's just another head. And I saw a screenshot of it, and it was hilarious. And
Oh my
what
gosh,
a
I'm
way
gonna
to
do that.
delight people! Yeah, and they can take you on virtual tours and stuff because they're not getting
Well, yeah, they're
field
not getting the
trips right now.
donations. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and the more we can help each other out, the better. Absolutely.
absolutely. So that's a little delight that one could try.
So on that note, we have dial in a llama,
Yes.
conscious connections, finding those human moments, doing a treasure hunt, so peculiar prompts, and all of these little tips will be in the notes. Austin, thank you so much for helping us, find a way to connect. It's so nice meeting you, and I look forward to continuing to learn from you and to share your wonderful tips for culture and connection and innovation as we all successfully navigate this time.
Thanks so
Thank you
much. I
so
had fun.
much.
Yeah.